Hi everyone, welcome to the Philly Boots Rugby Round Table. This is episode 19 that we've done so far, and we normally talk to the great and the good of the Grassroots game, and today is no different. So we've got Gareth Tully from Reading RFC, Jess Bunyard from Huddersfield RUFC, and Dan Archer from New Ash Green RFC. How are we, everybody?
Good,
Very well, thank you. Yourself?
Good, thanks, yeah.
Yeah, I'm grand, thank you. If you want to get involved in the discussions tonight, and it's going to be very sort of time topical. There's lots of things happened in the Grassroots game over the last week, as well as the world and everything like that. But so if you want to get any points in, any questions in that you want us to discuss or talk about, then please just put them in the comments, and we'll get to as many as we can during the next sort of 40 minutes or so. But obviously, as I just said, lots of things have happened in the last week, but we're going to go back a couple of months, I guess, post lockdown one. Gareth, tell us a bit about Reading and sort of the last couple of months that you've had, I guess, in pre-season training.
So obviously, really disappointed about obviously, ending the league season when it did. Our first team were pushing for promotion, and the second team had done really well as well. Sort of coming out of that and obviously going through the stages, it's obviously been very testing with trying to making sure that the social distancing is done, obviously making sure all the guidelines are being followed. But to be honest with you, the players have engaged really well. We still managed to train both Tuesday and Thursday nights. We were averaging sort of somewhere between 50 on a bad night and 70 on a good night. We started, obviously, when the touch rugby was the Ready for Rugby, was introduced. We started doing an inter-squad touch tournament, which the boys have really enjoyed. Just getting that little bit of competitiveness into it. But obviously that's stopped now. But yeah, I mean, considering we were in a decent place, but obviously the brakes have been put on now.
Yeah, they certainly have. And Jess, how has life been at Huddersfield?
Yeah, it's been good. So I was in an odd position because I've literally just moved. So I was at a club up the road, Huddersfield YMCA, and then I've moved down to Huddersfield. So we're trying to start up the women and girls teams there and build on a really successful mini and juniors pathway. And then I'm also doing some coach developer stuff and some coaching in the men's squad. So I was just getting to grips with the club and what their processes were and getting to know everybody. And we've sort of just gone into lockdown, which is a bit gutting. But coaching in the stages before I moved, and having to use those constraints, I really felt I used them to my advantage and actually pushed me to be a bit more creative than I probably wouldn't have been otherwise. During summer training, it probably would have looked a bit samey. But I think the constraints of the stages certainly allowed me to use my creative brain a little bit more.
Yeah. So how have you been creative?
So I just think trying to get the players on board more and trying to have a few more discussions around the training and being a bit more open and honest. So we've gone, look, these are the stages we're working with. We're going to try some ideas. This is what we're going to do. And being a bit more open, honest and vulnerable about my coaching practice, and just not being afraid to just have a laugh and relax with it, because we didn't know when the stages were going to end. We didn't know when we was going to get to E and F. So just not being afraid to have some fun and try some stuff, going to the players. This is new. This game's brand new. We're going to try it. Like, I've got a triangle game that then developed into parallelogram game. And I said to them, look, this is brand new. I dreamt of this game in the shower, this touch game. It's like a mini little skill zone touch game. Like, we're just going to have a bash with it and try it. And then went to some of the players a week later and went, this was my feedback on the game. I felt I designed it way too small, and we need to go bigger. And what were your thoughts on it? And we had a really good chat about it. So just not being afraid to just be a bit more vulnerable with the players.
Yeah, that sounds good. And Dan, welcome to the show. How has life been at New Ash Green, and how was the summer, I guess?
Initially, we found it massively challenging, but we sort of created this player environment where it was was athlete led. They told us what they wanted to achieve if the season had happened, and we sort of guided what we thought at the time would have been a pre-season or pre-season, I suppose, to that. So we created this environment where everybody was attempting to become a master at their sort of own skills. We weren't competing one against the other. We were competing with our previous selves, and it was a really nice environment afterwards well, maybe not in the bar, but outside at the club, having a discussion that boys were challenging each other to push themselves as opposed to racing against each other or bettering or having that bit of competition. They were trying to beat themselves. So it was actually really quite nice as a coach and quite a nice environment to be involved in. We did see numbers after the lockdown. They were massive. We sat on for a small village team. We sat on 35 players turning up to training, and then as it went on, we sort of dropped down to between 27 and 30. But recently, since the cancellation of the leagues, we struggled with having numbers because people didn't see much of a point unless they were massively into their fitness, which is a bit of a shame. So keeping those players engaged over this lockdown is going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough. So those, if you don't already know, so the Return to Rugby roadmap was changed earlier in the week. It is now, we were at stage D, we're now at back to stage A, which I think people can understand, seeing as we're now in a lockdown situation. Do you think, and this is open to anyone, do you think you're gonna? We just talked to Dan about keeping people engaged. How are you going to be able to keep people engaged over the next 4 weeks, knowing that there is zero chance of playing with a ball or anything like that for at least a month?
I think for us, for that, for a sort of the natural mastery climate that's sort of been developed within the club, I'm hoping that continues throughout the lockdown, and we can update each other via WhatsApp or via various different meetings such as Zooms or in Teams meetings of what we're doing and how we're trying to beat ourselves. I think for me, and from discussions with the players on previous lockdowns, or the previous lockdown, sorry, was the sort of like the mental health of the players. So as a club, I feel as if we're going to support more players, especially those who live alone or those who are maybe having to shield, keeping them engaged and ensuring that their mental health is at the right sort of level for them. That's going to be one of our big challenges.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing when it comes to it, is just making sure everybody's all right through it. And like Dan said, especially people that are living on their own, or like you say, having to isolate and stuff like that. So we spoke about it, leading up to the lockdown. Our coaching staff are going to set like weekly challenges, through our various sort of WhatsApp groups and stuff, just to try and, like you say, keep the boys engaged. We spoke about doing quizzes and just stuff to just really keep the boys engaged more than anything.
Jess, do you think is it a better, because we've already been through it once, do you think we're all in a slightly better position because we know the first time round was a bit of the unknown? Now this time we've all been through it. We know how to communicate better and engage with each other better.
Yeah, I think we're aware of the pitfalls that we might encounter, certainly mentally. And I think we can keep in check with people probably a little bit better. I think one of the challenges for me is sort of twofold. One, I just got a bunch of ladies to a taster event on Tuesday. Mad keen for it, really enjoyed the event. And now we've gone into lockdown. So I don't want to lose those that we've got. I mean, there's good news on that front. One lady went out and bought a pair of boots after the first taster event session. So I doubt she's going anywhere. But for us, the key on that side is I want to make sure that we can get that social side, that sense of rugby family support for them during lockdown, so that we can be a support system, another support network for them, and keep them going through lockdown. And then on the other side of it is I've just got into this coach developer role. So the other opportunity for me is how can I best support coaches through this period, and what support can I offer them if they want to learn and develop and upskill themselves, but also how can I support them mentally?
No, it sounds good. It's going to be tough, but I think you've obviously got plans in place now, which is really good. Just going back on the rugby roadmap, obviously if you haven't seen it, it's socially distanced training with a maximum of 2 people, no equipment sharing, and you must maintain a social distance. So no groups of 6 or anything like that at the moment. So we've got a question in based on that from Chris Vaughan. Do you think we'll go back to the start, even though most clubs are all set up for level C and D? And are we comfortable where we're at?
I don't think we'll go back to the start. I think, if you've some of the stories in the paper, pre to this happening, the RFU were apparently close to agreeing sort of what, league rugby or whatever, or form of contact was going to look like after, obviously the original date was January the 21st, they said. So no, I don't think we will. Honestly, I don't think we can afford to go back to the beginning, because obviously, like, the hard work that's going to be done keeping people engaged is, if you go back and you're back into year 6, you can't play touch or anything like that. People are just going to walk away.
I think touching on that point, a lot of the sort of players that I know, sort of 38, 39 years old, are starting to walk away from the game already, because they don't see that maybe they're in their last season, on the penultimate season, and they're walking away. I think some of the veteran teams may struggle to return to play unless something is done.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all got, or certainly from my experience and the coaches I know, we've all got really sort of comfortable and familiar with stages C and D, and I think I'd be really happy to just return straight back to stage D and get stuck in with a bit of touch rugby to get everyone's fitness levels back up, and then go into contact. I mean, it's difficult because we're rugby league competing up here, so when rugby league are allowed to do tackles and union isn't, there's a little bit of sense or a little bit of fear from coaches and clubs. Well, will we lose players to league in the meantime until union goes back? And obviously I'm not hugely connected with the men's game at my club yet, but I haven't seen immense examples of that in various clubs. But I think the fear is definitely there. I think we have to, when we go back, we have to offer them something. Something for the low numbers, obviously, because touch rugby does offer predominantly stuff for the high numbers, but there's been low number skill advances as well. But I do think when you're trying to sell women's rugby to women as a game that celebrates all body shapes and all sizes and all fitness levels and ability, contact rugby does that a little bit easier than touch rugby does. So I think the quicker we can get to some form of contact, the better.
Yeah. Personally, I think we'll get back to C, and then that'll be a couple of weeks, and we'll be straight back into D, and then providing everything goes well, I think E and F will come pretty quickly. Actually, from what I read the same thing in the Times or the Telegraph this week, that the deal was almost close to getting the adapted rules version of rugby. It's already been played in the Premier 15s, so there's no scrums. There's very few scrums and more free kicks, and not much mauling. I think we're going to get back to that pretty soon, providing everyone does what we're being told to do, staying indoors and everything like that.
Yeah.
I think potentially it could have a long-term knock-on effect on the game if we're sort of almost calling mauls quite quickly and we're scrapping scrums. The game could become a lot more faster than it is currently, and it can become more of a spectator sport. I know people who watch football but don't watch rugby because the scrum resets, because it's a bit slow and they don't really understand what's going on. So it would be interesting to see what the long-term knock-on effects are of this COVID.
I think the free kick rule that obviously the Premier 15s have brought in since they started is something we probably should have done ages ago. Because like Dan said, obviously I'm an ex front rower, so the last thing I wanted to be doing is running around for 80 minutes. But even I'll turn around and say, the scrum has got to a ridiculous place at the moment. Especially when you're watching internationals and stuff like that, the amount of time it takes up for just a reset. Just free kick, get on with it. Want to play. Like you say, we wanted to attract people, and unless you're a big lad like me and get excited about scrums, you probably just want to play with ball in hand.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one, isn't it? From an outsider perspective, people will probably want to scrap the scrums unless you're an out-and-out front rower like myself as well. I do come back to that women's rugby argument of where body positivity within this sport is actually really niche within sport. I think we're one of the few sports that can say whatever body type, there's a place for you in this sport, and we will accept you in this family, and we will empower you and raise you up. And the scrums is a massive part of that. I just keep coming back to obviously the retweaking or the new interpretations of the ruck law and how that's helped massively. And obviously that was a group of people looking at the ruck law to see what needed to be tweaked, or was it a new interpretation that was needed? And I think we sort of need something like that with scrums. I think resets and scrums going down and then resets again and taking an age it's not on its own isolated to Northern Hemisphere, but it's certainly a symptom of Northern Hemisphere rugby. I don't remember seeing that much of it when I'm watching Super Rugby in the Southern Hemisphere. So I think we, as a Northern Hemisphere, we certainly need to look at how we do scrums and can we do them any better.
Definitely. And I don't know if you saw what the Lee put up. Scrums at international level, yes. Local level, disagree. Safety is key and very few resets.
So Lee is our forward coach at Reading. So I expected that from him.
Evening, Lee. Thank you for joining us. Heather Hez has a question. Do you think this season is completely over now? So when we're back at training, we're prepping for the 2021 season.
I'm hopeful that we'll get to play some sort of 15-15 contact friendlies before technically what they call this season is over. So like you say, like in hopefully sort of March, well, maybe end of Feb, March, April, we can get a few games in, and then then it will be like full on to really start the proper league back on in the 2021-22 season. So that's
yeah. So let's deal with that point then. So last week the RFU announced that there was going to be the cancellation of structured league rugby for the 2020-21 season. I don't know how well that went down with people, but I think it was actually probably a necessary decision, knowing what that at least we know now, rather than trying to drag it out until the new year and then February and then March and then everything else. So league rugby's cancelled, but they haven't said that any rugby's been cancelled. They are looking into ways of playing some sort of league, or not league, sorry, some sort of games, whether it's local derbies or sort of local leagues, I guess what they said. Would that be something? No, is something better than nothing?
100%.
I think for us, the cancellation of the league wasn't so bad, because some of our journeys are 120 mile round trip, because although we're in a Kent league, we play against a Sussex team. So I think the transmission of COVID is probably a positive thing. I think the RFU have looked at that and said some people have got quite a long trek some days, or even a bus journey with 30, 40, 50 people in a bus getting boozed up. Social distancing isn't going to be happening.
Oh,
there.
I miss those days.
Yeah, but I think I'd like to see. As we move forwards, I'd like to see maybe a 7 season, 15 season, maybe not in the traditional sort of the traditional months, but 7s or 15s, and then a full 15-a-side season, maybe at a reduced time, 10 minutes each way, something like that, so you can have more teams playing against each other from their local clusters potentially. And I think that could be a way forward. Obviously, non-league based, but friendlies, maybe minor tournaments in clusters of 5 or 6 different clubs. That'd be for me. That's what I'd like to see happen.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I'd really love to see like some local series or local like little cluster leagues set up that are based around friendlies. I also think if we're doing that format, now would be the time to be really creative and just have fun with it and see how much fun we can have in setting up these small leagues. Like imagine if you went down to your local club to watch Saturday rugby and it was contact, touch, whatever format we come out with it. But it was a local cluster league, but they put in some mad rules in. So imagine one of the rules is a low numbers kick. So the coach has to do like 10 press ups, or he has to go run to the bar and get the drinks to have outside after. Like you can have so much fun with it. Or each time, like yeah, or like each time we score, we have to change the rules or something. Or like each league plays on a giant like Monopoly board. So each time you play a fixture, you move up one, and that changes the rules or constraints that you're going to play with. I just think it's sort of it's a free pass to have fun and to see what madness we can create out of the season and just have fun with it. It's been a really horrible year, not just for rugby, but for all kinds of reasons because of COVID. So surely now is the time to go. We've got a free pass. Let's organise a local little cluster league and just have fun with it and see what we can do.
I think.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, go on, Gareth.
No, I was just going to say, I think obviously when the RFU announced, obviously there wasn't going to be happening anything till January 21st, next year. I think most people were sort of understanding that meant league rugby wasn't going to happen. I know obviously it's rubbish, but I think in the long run it's probably the best idea, because even if they had put in some sort of condensed league, teams that got relegated, teams that got promoted, there would have been, I think, mayhem with people complaining, because obviously with people struggling with players and stuff, you might have a team that gets promoted that probably shouldn't get promoted, or a team that gets relegated that probably shouldn't be relegated. So I think that's probably the best going forward. And to jump on what Jess said, hopefully if we do get that go ahead to play a form of 15s rugby come end of February, March, I said, then I think those ideas are brilliant, just to get that good feel factor back for everybody. And also, it drums up some well needed funds for all the clubs, because it is really, really difficult for community clubs like us to operate without the bar, because it's so important.
That was the next point I was going to make. If you have these clusters, or you have these sort of bubbles of teams or clubs, then if you had a 3-month season of friendlies or something, then every other week or every 6 weeks, I suppose it would be, if you had 6 teams or 5 teams, you would be at that club, and you'd be
100%.
generating funds to those bars, and you'd be looking at, if you had 15 aside and 10 minutes each way, then you're looking at a lot of players. You're looking at hundreds of players and supporters who are putting money behind the bar, and afterwards putting money behind the bar also.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly, for sure. Would anyone be against playing during the summer?
I think for Jess, that would be the biggest issue if she's competing against rugby league.
Yeah, I would also have an issue, obviously, checking with the firmness of the ground if it's contact rugby. Obviously, that would be something we need to take into consideration. It would be a clash for league here for us, for sure. But I honestly think people just want to play in whatever format. I mean, I would love the RFU to push local sevens a little bit more. I don't think that's really pushed enough, and I think that's a key area of development, particularly in the summer, that we could work on. So I think, Gareth, you mentioned like pushing the sevens more alongside the 15s. Like I'd love to see some seven stuff in the summer, and for us to encourage sevens as a pre-season format that's pushed as much as 15s is.
No, I think so. I think the 7th season would be great. especially as you have said, we're all missing the game. Let's play some sort. And even if you're not wanting to play sevens, let's play the ready for rugby game or touch rugby or something. Let's we can try and make this a 12-month sport, just in different varied formats. Did any of your clubs have ready for rugby fixtures or planned any ready for rugby fixtures?
Yeah, we were planning one for the 21st of November. It obviously fell through.
We were the same. We were looking at starting to do some. Obviously, a lot of our youth section had started doing it, and it'd been successful. But yeah, we were looking into it.
So yeah, for us, the men's had a couple of ready for rugby fixtures. They just managed. I mean, they normally used to play on like a Thursday night. They managed to squeeze in and change their fixtures to the Tuesday, so they got one more game before lockdown. And I know a couple of the junior teams had some success with it as well. I think like a couple of clubs, we were trying to squeeze in a couple of fixtures earlier this week so that at least the juniors and the blokes could have a game before we went into lockdown. I think that was really key for a lot of people's mental health to get one more run out.
Sure, yeah. And mental health seems to be, it's a common thing in this discussion. That we've spoken about it on pretty much every show as well. But people's mental health may suffer, and rugby, with all sport, all community sport has now been sort of taken away from them for the next sort of few weeks. It's going to be tough. So, look after yourselves, and if anyone wants to chat, then just DM me, or we'll have a chat about rugby. So hopefully that answers your question, Hez. I don't think rugby's going to. I think we are going to play some sort of rugby at some point, but and we're all going to love it.
It'll be interesting to see as well, because the more elite sort of amateur clubs or the semi-pro clubs, maybe some of their players who are from further afield might just think, I'd rather play at my local club. So for grassroots rugby, it might, despite losing the funding of bars and various different other streams of revenue, it might actually be a positive having more experienced players in the club who want to help out or want to be involved in something more local.
Yeah, hopefully it might do that. Let's hope so. And Richard Phillips says it gives the bigger lads longer time to get fit.
I tell you what, to be honest with you, the big lads at Reading have really actually benefited from obviously the touch and everything. Because obviously playing at the faster pace, not having to worry about doing too much of the old heavy lifting. So it's been really good for them, and they've actually enjoyed it, which was a big concern. We thought they'd definitely sort of slink off into the dark, just waiting for the contact to come back.
Actually, on that, from you, Jess, like setting up a women's club, has it given you that opportunity to actually teach some handling skills and actual game skills before people start taking contact and being put off for life?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. So we've done all right at recruiting, and then at my previous club, we were having some success with the training numbers. I almost think purely because so it's not going to please everybody, and people do want to hit tackle bags, and people do want to hit each other and get out that agginess. Particularly over summer uni students who honestly didn't have a clue what they were doing with their timetable, and their stress levels were through the roof and they didn't know. So they were just aching for some contact. But often women, particularly if they've joined the game later in life, come with a bit of preconceptions that they're going to walk into a training session and immediately get smashed and walk away with a broken nose, broken leg, and that's them for life, So I think given the opportunity to sell it as something else, that look, this is RFU certified, this is what we have to do, we can't do contact, we'll be focusing on skills and games and social fitness. I think it probably has won a lot more women over to the game, and their perceptions of the game has changed. I mean, our taster launch event on Tuesday took place on the training pitch, and then next to us the combined sort of ones and twos blokes were playing a game of half a hour. So I could literally turn around to the ladies and go, we're playing touch rugby here. We took them from rugby netball step by step up to a game of touch rugby. And I said, we're playing touch rugby here. If you look across, the first and second 15 are playing a very similar game to us. Congratulations, ladies. You've made it from rugby netball to touch rugby, just like the lads are playing, all in one session. And I think that really did help their confidence and get over some preconceptions about the game.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we've had a few people, sort of, as you call them, new people turn up to the club over the last few weeks that haven't played rugby for a while, so they might have not played rugby since they were in secondary school or for whatever reason. And, you know, having to speak to them, they're like, oh, I'm not sure if this was the right time to do it. For me, I think it's the perfect time for them to do it. Because obviously, if this was, you know, if we were in the normal league season, if you turned up on a Tuesday, Thursday night, you're prepping for whatever games you got on the weekends. You just throw them in and like, right, we expect you to be able to do everything. At least now you have that time to use the get on with the core skills, you know, the basics of passing off both hands and stuff like that. So I think for anybody that's out there that's sort of umming and ahhing about, I want to come back, you know, they've had a little bit of taste of the end of the Six Nations, then I think it's the perfect time. Just get back in, you can get all your skills done, and then obviously once the contact comes, it's going to be reintroduced, like obviously with stage D with the 15-minute and stuff. So you've got more time to actually coach them through everything. So I think it's the perfect time for people to come back. That's Reading Rugby Club, yeah?
Yeah. I think spot on. I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but I think obviously if you're in that mindset where it's a training session, you're prepping for a game, you can turn a little bit more business-like as a coach. And I don't know about anybody else, but these enforced stages have really allowed me to make more meaningful connections with the players. Yeah. So we've done like mad stuff at the club. I just left before I moved. We did themes. So we did like a Shrek theme for a couple of weeks, where all of the training sessions were around like the films of Shrek, and we designed some games and used all of the Shrek lingo and stuff. So 2 people were like Shrek and donkeys, and they had to like tag and take out the knights and stuff like that. And it just allowed me to have a little bit of freedom because there wasn't the pressure of the upcoming game. And actually we could just slow down. The players could chat to me, the players could chat to each other and give more meaningful peer-to-peer feedback. And I could chat with everybody else and have more meaningful connections. And it's really just allowed me to just get into the flow of actually coaching rather than just managing people.
Yeah, definitely. Plenty of time, and we can have some, really good, we'll call, not novices because they might have been when they started, but by the time that a rugby game comes, could be some really good players coming through. So it's exciting. I think people should use this as an opportunity to grow and be better, because I think what an opportunity to slow down, rest the body a little bit. And my body's battered after 25 years of playing. It's loving the fact that you go to training and then there's no contact. So you don't wake up the next day, or there's no game on the Saturday and you feel crap for the Sunday. It feels really good, and might add some years into people's rugby playing days, which is what we need right now. We need people playing and staying within the game, and for the last few years that hasn't happened. People are dropping out all over the place. So if something, just easing the pace a little bit, slowing down, and using this as a bit of a rest and recuperation period, and if that helps keep people in the game, then we're all going to be better off for it.
100%.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, so also today, before we do that, Rugby Store have once again helped us out with the show this week, and they've got a great offer actually this week on their website, rugbystore.co.uk, because it's Remembrance Sunday over this weekend. If you buy a British Army shirt, they're going to give £20 to the Royal British Legion for every shirt that's sold. And you can also get 10% off that shirt when you use the promo code FYB Pod. That is currently going along the ticker at the bottom. So, thanks to Sam and everyone at Rugby Store for helping out with the show again tonight. And get 10% off, and let's raise a few quid for a great charity in the Royal British Legion. So with that done, tonight, this evening or this afternoon, the RFU released their community game update, and a few people asked this on a few posts that we put out during the week. Was rugby allowed in schools? Yes, is the answer to that. They've said that rugby in schools is allowed as long as it is part of the curriculum. However, no extracurricular rugby activities are allowed. Dan, you said you're a teacher, and rugby is mostly part of what you do. So, how does that affect you? How can that, will that affect the grassroots game at mini and junior level over the next month or so?
I think firstly, it's a positive that some schools can play rugby, but then there's always going to be that dropout of schools that don't have a rugby program or don't offer rugby in PE or games, and there's going to be those students out there, probably looking at thousands of students who aren't experiencing rugby for a whole month. Then potentially we're going to lose them to the to other sports that return quicker, such as maybe football or handball or something like that. And
does anyone play handball?
It's interesting to see out there. It's sort of like the sort of demographic that we have of students and what sports they play. So we might potentially lose those, especially sort of at big state comprehensives or something like that. Those who are at grammar schools or in the private school system, I think they're going to be set and they're going to be all right. But those at comprehensives, we might be losing them.
Were we losing them anyway?
Sorry?
Were we losing them anyway without sort of lack of coaching or facilities or I went to a rugby playing school, comprehensive school, but if it wasn't for the fact that the coach of the teams, the school team was also the coach at Kingston Rugby Club. Yeah. So if that wasn't the case, we wouldn't have played it.
Yeah, but potentially that the RFU maybe need to look at these different schools like more in depth. Again, with these redundancies from RDOs and CRCs, it potentially it's going to get worse. So they do need to. Maybe us as a rugby playing community, as volunteers and interested and keen dads potentially, be contacting these comprehensives after the lockdown and saying, look, have you got any players or any people who are interested in rugby? Can we set up a satellite club, or can they turn up on a Sunday somehow and get them involved again really quickly?
Yeah, massively. I think one of the ways to get into the schools and to make long-lasting change is to go through the teachers as well. So how can we as rugby clubs upskill and help our teachers learn from the sport? Because obviously teachers are going to teach what their passion is. Obviously they've got to cycle through the national curriculum and teach a range of sport. But if one teacher is mad for football, then the kids are going to really love football because he's conveying that. Likewise, if one female PE teacher is just mad for netball, which I don't understand because I didn't love netball at school. I hated it. But if one teacher loves netball, then she's going to get that passion across. So I just think we need to find some way of getting our passion and our knowledge of rugby across to the teachers and conveying to them that actually it's quite an easy game to do in schools. You can do it in bite-sized chunks. You don't have to just go in and do a full-blown session of full contact rugby and then they've done rugby for PE. Actually, you can take elements of the game and take it out, and that's really useful in a wider PE environment. So I think it's just conveying that. I don't want to speak for PE teachers or somebody that's not involved with the sport. But again, I think it's that preconception of, well, I've done rugby in school and everybody thinks of like full contact, scrums, everything in a PE lesson, and that's all you can do. But actually, as I said, you can take elements of the game and make it into a PE environment that's probably better for the kids and better for the school. So I think it's how can we do that? And I think if we, access to the students, as you said, Dan, is great. And I think that's one way of getting kids across into the clubs. But I think the way we develop a long-lasting connection with the schools as rugby clubs is getting through to the teachers and making sure that they have a passion for it.
Yeah, we're quite lucky at Reading that a few of our senior team are PE teachers at local schools, and we have some club members that have their own sort of like coaching companies that actually go into local schools and deliver sessions for the kids, and obviously help the teachers and everything. But I completely agree with what Jess says. We need to, get in those schools and help as much as we can, because obviously that's the lifeblood of the clubs is the the minis and the junior section, because you want them to work all the way up through to your seniors, and then like you were saying, Sean, end up going playing vets and just getting as much out of them as we can. So I think it's really important that we really do sort of, like Jess says, look at ways that we can support schools.
Yeah, I think that's going to. I think we'll do another one of these on the recruitment of minis and juniors from schools in the next few weeks. I think that's a really good topic, and I think there's lots of we could use it as a big ideas hub and melting pot of ideas for to help everyone else out. So I think I think we'll do that in a few weeks' time. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But I am going to ask each of you what one hope and one fear that you've got for rugby at our level post this December lockdown. I will start with you, Gareth. If one hope and one fear.
I think probably the biggest fear I have is that when rugby comes back, that it's not rugby union, that it's turned into essentially rugby league, something like that. We play rugby union for the specific reasons of the proper contact, the scrumming, the mauling, and everything like that. So that's my biggest fear, obviously, along with losing players. My biggest hope is that we just get back playing, and as quickly as possible. That's all you can hope with, because I think once we give them that green light, everything will be okay, because everyone will just jump on board and be like, yes, we're back now. And then I think we'll be able to sort of build and look behind on what's everything's happened, and going forward, actually learn from it as well.
Yeah, Jess, one hope and one fear.
Yeah, I mean, I do share Gareth's fear. It's front row union in here, so I think that's a fear we share. But I think my main fear at the moment is how quickly we're actually able to get out of this lockdown so that rugby can resume. I think the furlough schemes today has been announced that it's extended till March, which has obviously put a fear in the back of my mind that we might be in lockdown for a little bit longer than early December, and therefore what potential ramifications does that have for the game and community sports as a whole, and indeed the clubs, and how can we best support sports clubs through this time. But I think my biggest hope when we return is that coaches, clubs and players see this as an opportunity now, as a free pass, to be as creative as they possibly want to be. You go mad. We don't have to stick to the set league structure. Go mad, set things up with your local clubs. What can you do as a coach that's really creative and wacky, and just see it as a free pass for the rest of the season to just appear completely bonkers from an outside perspective, but do something really meaningful.
100%. And finally, Dan, one hope and one fear.
My biggest hope is that there's some rugby this season. As long as, again, as Gareth and Jess said, as long as we get back to something that looks like rugby union, I'm not too fussed at the moment as to what that looks like. But my biggest worry is when we do eventually return to playing full time, 15 aside, is the amount of injuries at grassroots level that we may find. Because if you ever look at after our first lockdown, if you look at Premiership football, the amount of, I think it was the Chelsea-Arsenal game, the amount of players who were injured, and they're professionals, the amount of players that were injured in the first 20, 25, 30 minutes was unbelievable. So having this elongated time out of rugby, our bodies are not going to be used to it. We're not going to have the old iron bodies anymore. And it's going to be, the first games are going to be brutal, because everybody's either going to be fitter or fatter than they were previously. The first hits are going to be absolutely brutal. I was talking to one of our scrum halves, Jamie, who's actually been commenting all the way through. and he said that as a short guy, he's a bit worried about these big hits as people are putting on weight or getting fitter. So that's probably my biggest worry.
He's just worried someone's going to mess his hair up.
He doesn't have any.
Oh, brilliant. On that note, what a perfect note to end on. Gareth, Jess, Dan, thank you very much for joining us.
No problem.
Thank you all for putting comments and questions. And so there's some strange ones. So, but something about playing rugby against a horse. What was it? Let's have a look. Would you rather play rugby against one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
That's the game I was talking about.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and we'll leave that to you to figure out. But
they had that. Wasn't that a question about Manu? The England boys were asked that question. I'm sure I saw it somewhere saying about a horse-sized Manu or like a duck or 100 duck-sized Manus or something like that.
I think I remember. Yeah, but Hey, look, everyone, stay safe.
You too.
Stay safe. Stay engaged in the sport. We'll try and do some fun things over the next 4 weeks to keep people entertained and engaged in rugby. And thank you all for your efforts. And obviously we've got things being posted every day. The one-liners from about why your clubs are so special, which are going out. I think I've got about 200 more to go through, which is just incredible. If we can keep grassroots rugby at the forefront of people's minds, then hopefully when we do get back, we'll be in a much better, stronger position. Thank you, Gareth, Jess, Dan, everyone for watching, everyone for listening. Watch on YouTube again. This will be a podcast again Friday morning. So, leave nice reviews and subscribe and listen. And we're currently the 48th most listened to rugby podcast in the UK. So let's try and get into the top 45. So and again, thanks to Rugby Store, 10% off FYB Pod. Thank you, everybody. Cheers.
Thank you.
Take care.
Cheers, bye.